Montana, 1993. It was the kind of summer that smelled like dust and pine, the kind where the sky stretched too wide to hold on to anything. For Tom Ellsworth, 67, a retired school principal from Helena, this was supposed to be a small escape, a weekend with his daughter and son-in-law, camping near the edge of the Bitterroot National Forest. Just him, the mountains, and his dog, Jasper. Jasper was an Australian Shepherd mix with intelligent eyes and a thick tricolor coat that looked too warm for the July heat. He was the kind of dog who didn't bark unless it mattered. Tom had adopted him 3 years earlier, not long after losing his wife Anne to pancreatic cancer. They had been married 42 years. In the months that followed her passing, Tom had grown quiet. But Jasper brought motion back into his days. They took walks every morning. Jasper would nudge his hand during breakfast, lie under his feet during the news, and guard the porch when the nights got long. He wasn't a replacement. He was something new, a companion in the silence. They arrived at the campsite late Friday afternoon. It was remote, just off a gravel service road 10 miles outside Hamilton. Tom helped unload the cooler while Jasper trotted toward the tree line, ears perked. "Don't go far," Tom called out. The last time anyone saw Jasper was around dusk. They had grilled burgers and corn, and Tom had gone to wash his hands at the creek. When he returned, Jasper was gone. At first, it wasn't panic, just a call into the dark. "Jasper, come on, boy." But 10 minutes turned into an hour, then 2. Tom walked through the trees with a flashlight, calling his name. His daughter, Megan, and her husband, Ryan, helped search, their voices echoing through the canyon. But there was no barking, no rustling, nothing. By midnight, the temperature had dropped. They built a fire and waited. Tom barely slept. The next morning, they combed the area again. Paths, animal trails, even near the road, in case Jasper had wandered toward the highway. They left food out, whistled, called. By Sunday, Megan convinced Tom to head back to Helena and put out alerts. They filed reports with local shelters and called the vet's office in case anyone brought Jasper in. Megan printed flyers with Jasper's photo and put them up around Hamilton, Missoula, and along Route 93. Days passed, then weeks, and then silence. August came, then September. Tom still walked the trails near his home each morning, but slower now, without urgency. At first, he held Jasper's leash in one hand, just in case. But after a while, he left it on the hook by the door. He tried to be logical. The Bitterroot Mountains were vast. Coyotes, bears, rivers. There were too many ways a dog could disappear in a place like that. But logic didn't help him sleep. He told himself he was lucky to have had 3 good years with Jasper. Lucky to have known a dog that loyal. But luck didn't sit well when paired with loss. Neighbors would ask now and then if there was any word. He'd shake his head, smile politely. No, nothing yet. Yet, by October, he stopped saying that part. His house grew quieter than usual. He turned off the radio, stopped watching the evening news. Sometimes he'd leave a lamp on in the hallway, a strange reflex, as if Jasper might pad down the corridor in the night, pushing open the bedroom door like he used to. Then on October 17th, a letter came in the mail, not from a shelter, not from a vet. It was from the Montana Department of Transportation. Enclosed was a toll receipt. A kind stranger, an older couple returning from a fishing trip, had picked up a stray dog along the highway near Seeley Lake. The dog had tags, worn but legible. The vet had scanned the chip, and the address traced back to Tom Ellsworth. The note read, "He's thin but alive, friendly, Came right to us. We would have kept him if we hadn't seen the tags. We hope he makes it home. The dog had been dropped off at the Flathead County Humane Society in Kalispell, 120 miles north of the campsite. Tom stared at the envelope, and then, without even putting on his coat, he walked outside to the truck, keys in hand, and drove 6 hours north without stopping. When Tom arrived at the shelter in Kalispell just after 9 p.m., the place was closed. He sat in the parking lot for almost an hour, staring at the dim light behind the reception window. The air was cold enough that he could see his breath. A young staffer named Melissa, working late to finish some paperwork, noticed his truck. She came out hesitantly. "You here for something?" she asked. Tom held up the envelope, his hands shaking just slightly. I think you have my dog." Melissa took the paper, nodded, and without a word, turned and unlocked the front door. The building smelled like antiseptic and dry kibble. Faint barking echoed down the halls. She led him to the back, past a row of kennels. Some dogs stood and watched as they passed. Others stayed curled in their corners, eyes heavy with fatigue or fear. At the very end, in kennel number 38, a shape stirred. Melissa unlocked the gate, and Jasper, though thinner, duller, and covered in scratches, stood up. His ears perked. His tail didn't wag right away. He sniffed the air, and then he whimpered. The kind of sound that broke open something in Tom's chest. "Hey, boy," Tom said, voice catching. "You really did it, didn't you?" Jasper stepped forward slowly, carefully. Then, as if something finally clicked into place, he lunged into Tom's arms with a cry that was part bark, part sob. Tom sank to the floor with him, wrapping his arms around the dog's ribs, feeling the jut of his bones. He pressed his forehead against Jasper's. "You made it home." It was more than a statement. It was disbelief, gratitude, a prayer answered late, but answered all the same. Melissa knelt beside them and smiled, blinking back tears. "We thought he was too old to have made it that far," she whispered. Tom didn't answer. He just kept holding on. Tom and Jasper spent the night in a modest motel off US Route 2. Jasper curled up on the bed without needing to be asked. He fell asleep almost immediately, his breathing deep and uneven, like a man back from war. Tom didn't sleep. He sat in the chair by the window, the TV off, listening to the rhythm of Jasper's breath and watching headlights roll past in the dark. He thought about the route, about the 120 miles. If Jasper had followed the Bitterroot River, he would have had to cross thick forest, 2 highways, countless fences, and at least 4 towns. He would have had to forage, to drink from streams, to avoid coyotes and trucks and rail lines. But what struck Tom most was not the journey. It was the direction. Jasper hadn't wandered randomly. He had gone north, deliberately, purposefully. He had walked home. When Tom told Megan the next morning, she cried. So did her kids. By the end of the week, the story had already spread. A friend of Megan's posted it on a local bulletin board. Then a reporter from the Helena Independent Record reached out. The headline ran on October 25th. Loyal companion walks 120 miles to save his master. It was meant to be heartwarming, a feel-good piece before the holidays. But what the article didn't say, what no one knew, was what Tom hadn't told anyone. That before that letter arrived, before Jasper's name appeared again, Tom had written his own. A note, simple, folded, left in the drawer by his bed, because losing Jasper had reopened something deeper. Not just the grief of losing a pet, but the hollow of Anne's absence. The feeling that the walls were too quiet, that the world had become something he could no longer speak to. That Sunday night, Tom had poured a glass of scotch, opened the drawer, and paused only because the phone rang. Just once. No message, but it was enough to break the silence. The letter from Kalispell arrived the next morning. Tom never told Megan about the scotch or the letter. He burned it the same night Jasper came home, took it out to the backyard in a coffee can, watched it curl and vanish under a cold October sky. Some things didn't need to be remembered. Instead, he focused on rebuilding. Jasper was frail but healing. The vet confirmed cracked paw pads, signs of malnutrition, minor infections, but nothing fatal. With care and food and time, the old dog would recover. Tom, in his own way, was recovering too. He started going into town again, sat through Sunday services for the first time in years, talked to his neighbors about more than just the weather. And every time someone asked, "Is that the dog from the newspaper?" he smiled. He'd nod. Sometimes he'd even retell it if they had the time. But he always ended the same way. He didn't just find his way home. He gave me a reason to stay in mine. By late November, the snow began to fall across Helena. Jasper grew thick-coated again. He was slower now, more careful on the stairs, more content to nap in sun patches on the living room rug. But he still insisted on morning walks. Tom didn't argue. They didn't go far, just a mile or so along the trail behind the high school. But it was enough. People began to wave. One woman slowed her car just to say, "Thank you for sharing your story. It helped me more than you know." And Tom thought maybe that was the point of it all, that some journeys aren't about miles. They're about turning back from the edge and finding someone, something, waiting for you. In the spring of 1994, a plaque appeared near the trailhead behind Helena High School. It was small, just brushed steel on a cedar post, in honor of Jasper, who reminded us that some paths are worth walking, no matter how far. Tom didn't commission it. A local teacher had done it with her students, inspired by the story. She sent Tom a photo. He visited it quietly one morning, Jasper at his side. The grass still wet with dew. By then, the story had reached further than anyone expected. A national morning show picked it up. Letters came in from veterans, widows, even kids. One from a man in rural Kansas read, "I was ready to give up, but then I read about your dog. If he could walk that far to come home, maybe I can take one more step too." Tom kept that one, framed it. He never sought fame, and he never stopped grieving Anne, but he also never sat in silence again. Every morning, Jasper woke him with a soft nudge of the nose. Every night, he lay beside the bed, curled in the same shape as always. Jasper lived 3 more years, and when the day came, when Tom had to say goodbye once more, he did it with a steadier heart, because this time, the silence didn't win. Moral: sometimes it's not the distance that saves us. It's the fact that someone is still walking toward us, even when we've stopped believing they will. If this story moved you, like the video. Leave a comment to share your thoughts or tell your own story. Subscribe to hear more real-life stories that remind us why we hold on. Because sometimes it only takes one return to remind us we were never truly lost.